We are back for another deck tech from the Mavericks Modern Cup tournament that took place on June 4th, 2022. In this episode, we interviewed our friend Jake on his 80-card Elementals deck. Let's see what it's all about.
Basically, it's a tournament where all the best players in the world from different countries and everything come in the same room and play the game that we all love.
I am Jace Belair.
And I am Stoneforge Mystic.
It's just a really amazing game.
That's just mind-boggling to even think about. I guess the rest is history.
It's funny because I didn't always like Modern because it either was a format where there was just so much going on you couldn't prep for everything, or it was just two ships, passing in the night and someone would combo or do the thing first. But after Modern Horizons 2 became a lot more streamlined, and that's really drawn me to really like what Modern is right now. I know that's kind of contentious with the power level of the cards. I know it feels like the same 2-3 decks are always at the top of the metas, but there's a lot of stuff going on in Modern. But I feel like it's concentrated enough to where I can game plan for most everything out there, which is what I like to do. So the 4-color Elemental deck is the next evolution of just the 4-color, which is jokingly referred to as money pile decks, because it's Omnath from Zendikar Risen, and a bunch of Elementals from Modern Horizons 2, and Teferi and Wrenn and Six and lands to facilitate it. It was just a bunch of good cards together that I think Canister jokingly put Ragavan in it to make it money pile, and he won stuff with it. Then Autumn Burchett, I believe, was the first person, they were the first person to do the elemental theme in it, like Cavern of Souls and Risen Reef for just card advantage and game against control and tempo. It's a great mid-range control, aggro, it does everything. When Modern Horizons 2 first came out, I played a lot of Murktide, like the Izzet tempo deck with Murktide. That does not have a good matchup against this 4-color deck. And I expected a lot of Murktide, expected a lot of Yawgmoth combo in the meta today too, which the 4-color deck has a great matchup against, just because I'm able to do things like evoke a Fury for free, and then Ephemerate at the Balance of Blanket and deal 8 damage to someone's board. Or just repeatedly draw cards with Omnath and Risen Reef and get card advantage and tempo that way. Or just exile things with Solitude that way. So I think it has a lot of game against the popular decks right now. It has bad matchups like Tron, Burn, stuff like that aren't really popular in the meta right now, especially in paper. There's 31 lands. It's extremely complicated. I want to say 15 or 16 are fetches. I actually had the mirror match I played a couple rounds ago. I got to a point where I had no valid fetch targets, which is something that happens every now and then. It's nothing complicated, just because you got 2 triumphs, which is great, a bunch of one-offs of shock lands that facilitate the 4 colors, and then basics just to play around stuff. And then it has a lot of flexible lands, like it has 3 Boseijus, which you can't fetch for. It has Cavern of Souls, which you can't fetch for, but you can make like a rainbow land that's uncountable with elementals. It sounds really, it is really difficult to build that mana base, to fetch that mana base, and to plot out that mana base in games, but cards like Wrenn and Six make it infinitely easier to navigate all that. Abundant Growth too does a great job of not just drawing cards, but just making an awkward shock land or basic into anything it needs to be. Creature-wise, just 4 Ragavans, 4 Risen Reefs, 4 Furies, 4 Solitudes, 4 Omnaths, only 2 Endurance mainboard. Creature is just clean, 4 of a bunch of stuff, 2 of Endurance because it's more of a flex player, and then that 1 of Magus of the Moon too. So the synergy is that Risen Reef, 1 blue-green, 3 mana, 1/1 creature. That's not why you play that though. Its text is why you play it. When it or another elemental enters the battlefield, you may look at the top card. You look at the top card of your library. You may put a land into play tapped or draw it. So you have Risen Reef generating counter advantage on its own, but then you get stuff like Omnath, which is an elemental, drawing cards, gaining life, adding mana with its land triggers, as well as triggering Risen Reef, Fury and Solitude, Endurance. In addition to triggering Risen Reef as elementals, they do own things as well, like remove things, steal with graveyards, just decent bodies. There's just a lot of value that snowfalls very easily. Plus Cavern of Souls too lets you cast it against open blue mana. So non-creatures, there's the playset of Wrenn and Six, playset of Teferi Time Raveler, then there's a playset of Eladamri's Call, just to get any elements you need or a couple of silver bullets like Magus of the Moon, which is a real thing. You're playing Magus of the Moon in a 4-color deck. It works. It shouldn't, but it does. Then there's 2 Ephemerates. Some lists do 2, some lists do 4, just to get extra value. Like you can invoke the Elementals from Modern Horizons 2 with a vote trigger on the stack. You can Ephemerate it and it stays on for free. There's Unholy Heat, which I flip-flopped on, but just you get Delirium a lot more than you realize, and that 6 damage is really important against Omnath, some Murktides, Ledger Shredder, and Primeval Titan. Runs 4 Abundant Droves to help the mana, and it runs a 1 of Oath of Nissa, which is really good at helping play walkers when you normally couldn't, or just to get the next planeswalker, land, or creature out there. And it has extra value too, because you can blink stuff like Abundant Growth and Oath of Nissa with Yorion. Pretty sure that's all the non-creatures. I forgot, there's 1 Path to Exile, just as another clean answer to big things. The sideboard's interesting just because it's obviously an 80-card main deck. So silver bullets are a little tricky sometimes, but there are in there. First up, 3 Chalice of the Void, good against Cascade, good against Burn, good against Murktide. There are 3 Dress Downs, great in the Mirror, or any other deck where just creatures have important text. 2 Veil of Summers and 2 Dovin's Vetoes as a way to deal with control. There's actually 2 Endurances as well, as a hedge against graveyards, and then 3 one-ofs. There's Emrakul, the Promise End, for the mirror match. It's very important in the mirror match. Those mirror matches board states get really cluttered, and being able to control your opponent's turn is how you can break through with them. There's 1 Subtlety as well, just as another tempo play against creature decks, especially Primeval Titan. And then obviously the 15th card is Yorion, just because it's a companion, it's a 15th sideboard card, and it's there, and obviously it has so much synergy and value just to ETB, blink Elementals, blink Oath of Nissa, blink Abundant Growth, and then draw a bunch of cards and just out-tempo people. Single best matchup is honestly, I've only done it once, it's supposed to be Rhinos. I get why it's Rhinos just because you can play Chalice post-board and shut them off, Teferi shuts them off, you're gonna gain tempo and card advantage eventually. I think it's Yawgmoth though, just because they play a bunch of, on the surface, dopey creatures that just have Undying, so they come back, they're a little more sticky, and obviously they can combo well with Yawgmoth, but stuff like Fury and Endurance and Solitude just do really, really well against them, to where you can make them not a combo deck with just a bunch of mana dorks and dopey creatures. The first matchup is Burn. You're a 4-color deck against the Burn deck. It's awful. It is possible to stabilize, just because Omnath can gain you so much life in theory. It's not the best matchup though, at all. Favorite card in the deck? Honestly, Omnath. It just does. If you get to untap with Omnath, then almost anything is possible, especially at fetch lands. Everyone has their role, but Omnath is what really enables you to go from just like a fair mid-range tempo deck into doing unfair broken things that you may or may not should be able to do in this format. You should try it out because it's super powerful. It lets you play lots of things and draw lots of cards and do almost anything you can think of. If you don't mind going to time a lot in the rounds, you should try it out too, because it's not an easy deck to play. If you can overhand shuffle your Commander deck, you can try it out, because it's like playing Commander in a constructed format like this. But if those things scare you, you should never touch this deck ever.
That's it for this episode. We thank Jake for giving us a solid rundown of 4-color elementals. Please come back for our last deck tech from that weekend, which will be Pioneer. Thanks for watching. We hope to see you next time on Inside the Deck.